Have you noticed how many people over 40 believe their financial peak is behind them, that it's just about maintaining what they have, managing bills and waiting for retirement? Let me tell you something that will disrupt all of that. Money doesn't know how old you are. It has no age. What if I showed you that it's possible, at any stage of life, even after 40, to explode your income to levels you never imagined? Stop and reflect. Is your current income a reflection of your true potential or your ingrained mental conditioning? Have you ever considered how many times you've told yourself that opportunities dwindle after 40? It's as if an invisible clock ticks away, signaling the end of your prosperity, leaving you to simply hold on to what you already have. This belief is one of the biggest prisons of your financial life. The truth is, it's nothing more than conditioning gradually instilled by family, society, and the environment you grew up in. And as long as you accept this, every decision you make will be driven by fear of loss instead of a desire to create. Money doesn't see wrinkles, it doesn't recognize birth dates, it responds to energy, vision, and action, and you still have those in abundance. I went through this myself. I was in my 30s, lost, without prospects, believing there was no way out. When I started changing how I viewed my income-generating capacity, something powerful happened. I realized that age wasn't a barrier, but an asset. Every experience, every mistake, every difficulty I'd faced until then had given me skills and insights that a 20-year-old simply wouldn't have. My accumulated baggage wasn't a burden. It was intellectual, emotional, and practical capital that could be transformed into financial results. You have that baggage too. Think about your skills, your experiences, the contacts you've built. How many younger people would pay to learn what you already master? How many companies would want someone with your vision to solve pressing problems? The first change is internal. Start by writing, right now, "My income has no age," and read it every day. By repeating it, you force your brain to create a new neural pathway. Over the next few days, write down everything you already do well that could generate value. Maybe you're an expert in a particular field. Maybe you have a manual talent. Maybe you know shortcuts in processes that seem like labyrinths to others. This is the raw material for new income streams. Allow yourself to imagine what you would do if there were no age limits. What kind of business would you start? What kind of service would you offer? What knowledge would you teach? This exercise isn't childish, it's mental reprogramming. Now look at your fears. Maybe you think, it's too risky, I don't know if I can do it, or I don't have the energy I used to. These fears are common, but they aren't facts, they're thoughts. And thoughts can be replaced. Start by questioning each one. Is it really true that you don't have the energy? Or are you expending energy, sustaining a life you no longer want? Is it really that risky? Or is it riskier to reach the end of your life with the feeling that you never tried? This internal dialogue transforms fear into fuel. Ask yourself, if I were absolutely certain it would work, what would I do now? This simple question reveals hidden paths. Successful people who exploded their incomes after 40 have something in common. They decided to stop waiting for permission. They realized that age brings maturity, focus, and discipline. Think of Vera Wang, who started building her fashion empire at 40, or Colonel Sanders, who launched KFC after 60. These stories aren't magical exceptions. They are the results of a new mental decision. You can be the next example if you start now. It doesn't have to be a gigantic business at the beginning. It could be a side project, a small service, consulting, a digital product. The important thing is to start, even if it's small, to break the mental pattern of scarcity. Over the next 7 days, challenge yourself to identify at least 3 areas of your life where you can create extra value, something people would pay for. It could be knowledge, time, skills, or a network of contacts. Write it down, research it, and allow yourself to visualize how it could turn into income. At the end of those 7 days, choose one of those ideas and take a concrete step, however small. It could be creating a social media page to promote it, offering a service to friends, or taking a short course to improve what you already know. This action breaks the myth that you can't start after 40. On the contrary, it proves to your brain that you are the master of your own story. When you assume that there's no age limit to generating wealth, the world around you changes. The opportunities have always been there, but you were looking elsewhere. Start now, even if it's with a new thought, a phrase on paper, or a small market test. Each step reinforces your new mental pattern. And before you know it, the idea that income has an age will seem as absurd as it should have seemed from the beginning. This is the key to turning the game around, breaking the myth, taking control, and understanding that after 40 isn't the end. It's the best time to explode your income. Thinking is a skill that can be learned, and that discovery was my turning point. I remember, as if it were yesterday, the first time I entered the work environment of Earl Nightingale and Lloyd Conant. I truly wanted Earl to be my mentor. I watched him speak, prepare a lecture, choose his words. There was an active calmness in that place. People didn't just react to facts, they sculpted thoughts before acting. That vision struck me powerfully. It wasn't luck, it wasn't magic. It was a structured way of thinking. I saw there that systematic thinking could transform a man who barely knew how to read into someone capable of creating extraordinary results. The emotion I felt was a mixture of humiliation and relief. Humiliation for realizing how much I didn't know. Relief for discovering that it wasn't an innate gift. It was something I could learn and train. The first practical step is to accept that you can train the way you think. It's not enough to have loose ideas, you need a method. Do this now. Set aside 15 minutes a day. No phone, no news, just focused thinking on a real financial problem you have. Choose a simple problem. How to increase your income by 10% in the next 3 months, or how to turn a hobby into a source of income. During those 15 minutes, don't research solutions yet. Just think. List assumptions, write down why each one might be false. Imagine 3 completely different paths. This metacognitive training improves your ability to apply rules and evaluate options, especially when faced with complex decisions. Studies show that training in metacognitive strategies improves decision-making, even in older adults. In other words, thinking better works now after 40, and there's scientific evidence to prove it. Now let's dismantle the fears that always arise at this time. What if I don't know? What if it's too late? What if I waste time? These are voices of conditioning. Ask yourself aloud, if I were absolutely sure I couldn't fail, what would I do now? And let that question pull out options. Instead of using energy trying to prove you're right about a fear, use that energy to test small hypotheses. Test quickly, learn quickly. This is strategic thinking, formulating hypotheses, testing with real data, and adjusting. It's not romanticizing action, it's reducing risk through controlled experimentation. And this change in posture, from victim of time to scientist of your financial life, profoundly alters the results. Because belief in your ability, your financial self-efficacy, is directly linked to the actions you take: planning, saving, investing, and creating new income streams. Research on financial self-efficacy shows that the greater the belief that one can manage one's own money, the greater the productive actions taken with it. I want you to visualize a concrete example. Imagine you've worked for decades in a company and know processes that no one else in your region masters. In 15 minutes of directed thinking, you can list 3 ways to transform that knowledge into paid value: hourly consulting, a 3-hour online mini course, or a diagnostic service for local businesses. Take the simplest idea, for example, offering a 60-minute Zoom consulting session and run a micro-test. Write a page with the service, post it on a professional social network, and invite 5 contacts for a free session in exchange for feedback. Measure how many responded, how many scheduled, how many would pay afterward. This data tells you if the hypothesis is worthwhile. This cycle of thinking, testing, adjusting is more powerful than waiting for the perfect opportunity. Another point, changing your thinking pattern doesn't mean ignoring emotions. It means using them as data. If when thinking of an idea you feel anxiety, ask yourself, is this anxiety a real alert, substantial financial risk, or is it a remnant of a limiting belief? I don't deserve it. Write it down. Separate what is true risk from old stories. Science shows that our emotional relationship with money influences decisions as fundamental as saving and investing. Recognizing this and regulating emotions improves financial behavior. Some people ask me if positivity is just magical thinking. It's not. Well-applied optimism is a cognitive mechanism that facilitates persistent action and long-term choices. Research shows that optimistic people tend to make smarter financial moves and persist with strategies that yield returns. Optimism isn't blind faith. It's a strategic choice of focus that energizes you to create and test possibilities. Now, a concrete, practical, and measurable challenge, not a mantra but an experiment. For 21 days, practice directed thinking, 15 minutes daily, structured like this. Days 1 through 7, inventory your capital, skills, contacts, local opportunities. Days 8 through 14, generate ideas, at least 3 per day, and select 1 for a microtest. Days 15 through 21, execute the microtest with at least 5 contacts and gather feedback. Record everything daily: time, idea, market reaction, and learning. In the end, you'll have real data, and more importantly, a new mental pattern. You'll transition from a consumer of others' ideas to a producer of solutions. It's this habit of methodical thinking that creates clarity, reduces indecision, and opens the door to multiplying income. Ultimately, the biggest difference between those who remain stuck and those who advance isn't luck. It's the willingness to train your thinking, to transform hypotheses into tests, and to adjust with humility. I learned this by observing and working with masters who didn't improvise. They thought before they created. Make thinking a daily practice, and you'll find that your decisions become faster, more accurate, and far more profitable. Thinking well isn't an intellectual luxury. It's a tool for survival and prosperity, especially after 40. There's a silent law that determines how much you receive, and it has nothing to do with luck, favoritism, or a mysterious destiny. It's the law of compensation. It affects everyone equally and dictates that the money that enters your life is proportional to 3 very specific factors: the need for what you do, your ability to do it, and the difficulty of being replaced. When I understood this law, I stopped blaming circumstances and began to analyze coldly at what point I could become valuable in a way that few others were. This realization took me out of the rat race and allowed me to take control of my financial destiny. I was cleaning offices, a simple job, but I realized there was a huge demand and little professional organization. I developed better methods, standardized services, built trust with clients, and became indispensable. Suddenly, my income grew because I was applying the law without knowing its name. Look at your life now and ask, is what you do today in strong demand in the market? If the answer is more or less, that's where you should investigate. If you work in an area where there's a queue of qualified people ready to take your place, your value is low. But if you develop a skill that solves a pressing problem and is still rare, your value explodes. After 40, you have a huge advantage: experience. You know market nuances, shortcuts, mistakes, and solutions that young professionals haven't even imagined yet. Use this experience to become a high-impact problem solver. Make a list of the problems you've solved masterfully. Choose one and start structuring a service or product offering based on that expertise. Now consider the second factor, your ability. It's not enough for the need to exist. You need to be above average. This doesn't mean being a genius. It means training, studying, and practicing until you master it. If you already do it well, dedicate an extra hour a day to learning something that will further improve your delivery. It could be an online course, new software, a certification, or a more efficient process. While others relax, you become harder to replace. After 40, you don't need to start from scratch. You already have a foundation. Improving upon what you already do can generate exponential leaps. The third factor is the difficulty of replacement. It's not just about being good, it's about being unique. Uniqueness comes from combining experiences. For example, someone who has worked for years in logistics and also masters digital tools can offer a much rarer consultancy than someone who only knows logistics. Take an inventory of your unique combinations. Ask, what mixture of skills do I possess that few others have? Perhaps you have technical experience and communication skills. Perhaps you're great at sales and deeply understand a specific niche. This combination makes you a rare asset. When people realize it's difficult to find another professional like you, they agree to pay more without negotiating as much. Companies that ignored this law paid dearly. Blockbuster had access to streaming technology before Netflix, but didn't see the urgent need in consumer behavior. They didn't develop the skill and became easy to replace. Result, they disappeared. On the other hand, consider someone like Jeff Bezos. Amazon started by selling books, but he saw a gigantic need for online commerce, developed logistical and technological skills, and created a structure impossible to replace in the short term. He applied the law of compensation on a global scale. You can apply this to your life immediately. Start by listing 3 urgent problems that the market faces in your area. Then list 3 ways to become better than average at each problem. Choose a unique combination to work on in the coming months. Turn this into a concrete offering. It could be a product, service, mentorship, consultancy, app, or process. At the same time, build authority, publish content, participate in events, share case studies. The more people see you as a reference, the harder it will be to replace you. Another powerful point is aligning your work with emerging trends. Real data shows that as the economy changes, new needs arise and old ones become less profitable. The secret is not just to chase trends, but to understand the root of the problem and position yourself early. Use research, data, and conversations with clients to detect where the need is growing. By applying the law of compensation, you not only increase your income, but ensure long-term sustainability, because you position yourself where the market is going, not where it already is. After 40, your greatest assets are your network and accumulated reputation. Use them to accelerate this journey. Schedule conversations with former colleagues, clients, and partners. Ask what problems they face today. Often, the insight for a highly profitable business is hidden in a seemingly mundane conversation. You transform this into a pilot project. Test, adjust, and scale. This practice makes the law of compensation work in your favor almost automatically. Finally, internalize this idea. Money is an effect, not a cause. The cause is you finding a real problem, developing a rare skill, and becoming difficult to replace. Money simply responds to that. This is the essence of the law of compensation. When you shift your focus from earning to creating rare value, you unlock a force that has no age, no ceiling, and no expiration date. Every day after 40 can be a step toward a higher level of prosperity, as long as you live and breathe this principle. When I truly understood the power of multiple income streams, something within me shifted from fear to expansion. It's not just a nice idea, it's a concrete strategy that transforms risk into opportunity. MSI, multiple streams of income, isn't another job or a side hustle. It's creating value entry points that work for you even when you're not present. As I said in my transcript, MSI is not an empty theory. It's a practical principle that I've applied since the 1960s and that made my money roll from different places until it started entering the bank without me having to be there all the time. Perhaps you think, this is for young, entrepreneurial people with luck. Ask yourself, how many people you know have lived off the same income source for 30 years and feel secure? Concentrated risk is that one scare and everything can change. The logic of multiple sources is simple and powerful. Instead of relying on a single tap, you install several taps, some large, some small. Some require presence, others continue paying while you sleep. Immediate examples. A professional can keep their job, active income, offer occasional consulting, income per service, create an online course, passive income, and still receive royalties or licensing for content. All of this combined drastically reduces the likelihood of a financial collapse due to job loss. Diversifying income as a strategy is exactly that, reducing vulnerability and creating room for growth. Studies and analyses on financial resilience and diversification strategies support that creating alternative sources improves financial security and accelerates wealth building. I know the biggest objection comes from the feeling of insufficient time and the fear of starting wrong. That's why I'm not asking you to jump off the boat before you know how to swim. I'm asking you to start small with a minimum viable income stream, a micro MSI, that you can test in 30 days. Take inventory of what you already know how to do, repetitive tasks at work, hobbies, contacts who trust you. Choose the simplest idea that could generate a sale, a 60-minute consulting session, a practical ebook, a 90-minute mini course, a handcrafted product sold on a small scale. Launch it to a small audience, 5 clients, 10 friends, and record the results. Real data, however small it may seem, is worth more than eternal planning. These micro-tests allow you to learn, adjust, and quickly transform something that seemed risky into a real source of money. There's a priceless psychological benefit to having multiple income streams. It significantly reduces immediate financial anxiety. When part of your income comes from sources independent of your daily schedule, your mind relaxes enough to think strategically, take calculated risks, and make long-term decisions. Research shows that financial worries are strongly linked to psychological distress. Increasing income consistency and predictability tends to reduce this stress and improve mental well-being. This isn't mystical, it's measurable. I want to share something simple and concrete that I did every day, an affirmation repeated with conviction that I wrote and spoke. I am so happy and grateful now that money comes to me in increasing amounts through multiple sources, continuously. At first, it felt like empty talk. Over time, this practice shifted my focus and attention. I started seeing possibilities where I once saw problems. This change in perspective led me to create external income streams beyond my primary job. Some succeeded, others failed, but what remained was the sum. Money from more places, less dependence, more freedom. This is real and true. It wasn't luck, it was the result of repetition, attention, and action. Now, a practical caveat. Multiple income streams don't mean becoming a disorganized jack of all trades. Without a system, you'll burn out and have no time for family, health, and pleasure, a point many people overlook. Set boundaries, dedicated hours, simple automations, payments, scheduling, basic sales funnels, and partners when needed. There are practical guides on diversification without losing your sanity. It's not about working more, it's about working differently. And if you think only the wealthy profit from passive income, consider Elvis Presley. His recordings continue generating revenue for his estate. He created something that keeps paying decades later. This isn't magic. It's creating assets that provide continuous income. Conversely, there are corporations and leaders who didn't diversify or adapt and paid a heavy price. Learning to multiply financial income is, today, one of the most practical and transformative skills someone can develop in their 40s, 50s, or 60s. You have time, network, experience, and authority. Use them. I'll propose a practical challenge: the 30-day MSI Sprint. Week 1. Inventory. List 20 potential assets, skills, contacts, content, things you can sell. Week 2. Choose one and build an MVP, a single page, a 60-minute service, a product. Week 3. Conduct 5 to 10 tests with real people, gather feedback, and adjust. Week 4. Automate the minimum, online scheduling, payments, delivery, and document results. If after 30 days you've validated a paying source, even a small one, you've overcome inertia. Repeat the cycle for a second source. In 6 months, with discipline, you'll have a portfolio of income streams that transforms your relationship with money. The promise here isn't an instant miracle. It's a path with clear steps, decision, micro-tests, adjustments, and automation. When you add small streams, you create a compounding effect. Once one starts to grow, it frees up time to build the next. This generates expansion, not just in your bank account, but in your sense of control, hope, and possibility. Start small, think big, and let the system work for you. The biggest financial trap most people still face is trading time for money. It seems logical. You work, get paid for your time, pay bills, and repeat. But there's an invisible ceiling to this strategy, the limit of hours in your day. No matter how skilled you are, you can't sell more than 24 hours a day. That's why so many people work increasingly harder and, paradoxically, remain stuck in the same place. When I understood this, I realized my entire life had been built on a saturated model. I collapsed from exhaustion, believing more effort would bring more money. It didn't. It only brought physical exhaustion, anxiety, and a sense of powerlessness. That's when it hit me. As long as I continued trading time for money, I would always be a slave to the clock and never the master of my financial life. After 40, this issue becomes even more critical. The body no longer responds the same way to endless workdays, and the market often pays less for work hours as people age. But there's an advantage. By 40 or 50, you've built enough experience to break free from this cycle. You carry baggage that can become a product, service, system, or license. This baggage is the key to multiplying results without multiplying hours. Instead of being a direct worker, you become a creator of systems that function without your constant presence. Ask yourself, if I stopped working today, would my income still come in? If the answer is no, it's time to change strategies. This change begins with the concept of leverage. Think of musicians who record an album. They invest a period of time in recording, but then receive royalties every time the music plays, even while sleeping. Think of authors who write books, professionals who create online courses, entrepreneurs who develop processes and register patents, people who invest in rental properties. These are assets created once and generate continuous flow. This isn't fantasy. It's a business model based on assets and systems. In your case, it could be a course, an ebook, software, a franchise, a subscription club, or any service structured to function without your minute-by-minute involvement. The first step is to shift your mindset. Instead of asking, how much will I earn per hour, ask, how many people can be impacted by what I create? This question opens horizons. By creating something that can be replicated, distributed, licensed, or automated. You expand your income without needing to be physically present in every transaction. Start small. A checklist, a practical guide, a recorded consultation. Set a symbolic price, test with a few people, and see the return. Use digital platforms to deliver without being there. Automatic scheduling, online payments, digital libraries. This automation frees up time, and that freed time is reinvested to create another asset. Thus, a virtuous cycle is born. Another essential point is understanding that hard work isn't the villain. The villain is linear work without multiplication. Working hard on systems, products, and processes that replicate is completely different from working hard selling hours. It's strategic effort, and strategic effort made over a few months can yield fruit for years. When I realized this, I started directing my energy toward creating contracts in other cities, automating deliveries, and training teams. In a short time, I had a model that worked while I slept. This freedom didn't arrive overnight. It came from months of conscious construction, but it was worth every minute. You can use the same logic even if you only have one job today. If you work for a company, create a side project. If you already have a business, identify parts of your process that can become an independent product. Training, a manual, a franchise, a digital package. If you have a talent, transform it into something recorded, scalable, and distributable. It's a gradual transition from a linear service provider to a creator of assets and systems. This change brings another powerful effect: less anxiety. Research shows that people with automated or diversified income sources feel less financial insecurity and greater overall well-being because they know they don't depend solely on active time to generate money. This emotional security increases creativity and the willingness to innovate. And ironically, it's this mental freedom that allows you to create even more assets. You move from survival mode to creation mode. To make this practical, set a challenge. Over the next 30 days, dedicate just 30 minutes a day to developing a micro asset, a product or service that doesn't require your real-time presence. It could be a mini ebook, a recorded lesson, a package of professional tips, an automated spreadsheet, a simple service with a monthly subscription. At the end of those 30 days, launch it to a small group. The goal isn't to get rich overnight, but to break the mental barrier and prove to yourself that it's possible to earn money outside of the direct exchange of time. When you finally realize that your time is your most finite resource, you stop selling it cheaply. You start using it to build something that multiplies. This is the path to breaking free from the saturated model of linear income and entering the territory of true financial freedom. Gradually, you stop being someone who depends on hours sold and become someone who owns assets, systems, and automatic flows. And this transition, when it begins after 40, is even more powerful because it carries maturity, experience, and purpose. You're not just building income, you're building a legacy. The most important point of everything you've heard so far is simple but transformative. Your income doesn't have an age, it has a mindset. The key to breaking the financial limit isn't to work longer hours, but to change how you think, create value, and multiply income sources. Each time you question an old belief, each time you decide to learn something new and apply it practically, you get closer to the select group of people who control their own financial destiny. Keep going. The next video appearing on the screen will take you to climb another step in this evolution of wisdom, to become 1% better than you are now. Thank you for being here. I'll see you in the next video.